the sad part was that with that good girl conditioning was that I wanted to be liked more than I wanted to be true to myself. Hi guys, I'm Diamond, a content creator, writer, and strategist, and today I'm going to be talking about how I was addicted to validation and how content creation really showed me that I was addicted to validation and helped me to transmute that. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe on this video. I really appreciate it. And now let's get into it. I was obsessed with validation and I didn't even really realize it. And it took me becoming a content creator and growing a platform to even really realize that I had this obsession with other people approving of what I did, what I liked, and just how I lived my life. I always needed somebody to see something. I always needed somebody to approve. So I'm like, look. And I needed a sign off on every single thing. And to other people, sometimes I think it would look like a, look at me. And it wasn't really that. It wasn't me trying to flex or trying to show off. It was literally me looking for the validation that I felt that I needed to be okay and move through the world. Once I kind of started to get out of it, I realized why I had such deep issues with needing to be validated. And it was because I was a people pleaser. I had always been a good girl. And what I realized was, as a people pleaser and a good girl, it's like, well, damn, I'm not even doing what I want to do. So the most I can do is for everybody to say good job. Like, that's what I could get at a minimum, since I'm not even doing something that I enjoy. Can somebody at least pat me on the back and hand me a lollipop and give me a sticker and say I'm doing great? And that's really, I think, where that cycle of needing that validation started for me, was that whenever I was doing things that was pleasing to other people, and when I was being that good girl and not really being true to myself, I was always giving accolades. I was always giving praise. And so I wasn't giving it to myself because I wasn't living in alignment. I wasn't doing things that actually made me happy. And so it was like, well, I'm not getting the validation for myself because I'm not doing things that I enjoy. So at a minimum, the world can validate me. And I now realize how dangerous and bad that really is. And I remember my best friend had told me, she was like, you kind of need a lot of validation. She was being right. She was like, you kind of need a lot of, I didn't remember the exact words, but I know she said that you need a lot of validation. And I was like, dang, you're right. And this is when I was first starting to grow on social media, and I was checking my likes, checking my comments, checking everything obsessively to see if people liked it. Was it getting the reception? Was I growing? And it was a roller coaster. Honestly, though, for when I first started creating content, I was growing pretty consistently. And so it wasn't too much of an issue, but it would definitely come up when I'd have slow weeks or a post wouldn't do as well as I thought it would do. And I also was playing it very safe with my content because I didn't want to look stupid, and I wanted to create things that I knew that people would like. I was not interested in taking any creative risks because at that time I also didn't even think I was creative. I just was like, okay, I know that this works. I know that this has worked for other people. I know that this is probably safe. And so let's just keep playing it safe and getting the small growth and the, whatever I was getting out of it, the validation that I was getting out of it. But of course, that eventually blew up in my face. And it wasn't even that bad that it blew up in my face, but I had a deep, long period of self-reflection of realizing that my worth could not be tied to what people think online. And also, once I stopped being a people pleaser, I also was like, okay, well, this has to translate to every area of your life, including your social media. And so again, where my issues with needing that validation came from, they came from my people pleasing ways. I was a people pleaser in relationships, friendships, family, everywhere I could be a people pleaser, I was. My worth was tied to how well my work was received. So client work, my work when I was working in engineering world, my school work, all of that was tied to my worth. And that was very draining, especially in engineering school, because it was hard. I was good enough at math and science, but that wasn't really truly my thing. That wasn't my zone of genius. That wasn't really something that I was passionate about. And so it was always an uphill battle. And so when I didn't get the grades that I wanted, or I even did fail a class. I failed one class throughout my entire college career. And it just made me feel absolutely terrible. And I always felt not quite good enough in my engineering classes because it just wasn't my thing, and I knew it wasn't, and I didn't really see a way out of that at the time. And then I also had issues and fears of being seen as incompetent or figuring it out or just not good enough. Of course, when we are first starting things, we're not going to be the best that we could possibly be because we're just starting. But when you have that perfectionist mindset, and when you have that people pleasing tendencies, and when you have that fear of being seen and looking stupid, it can be debilitating and really limit your creativity and limit you when you don't fully express yourself and you need that validation. The sad part was that with that good girl conditioning was that I wanted to be liked more than I wanted to be true to myself. And that, ooh, I get chills, and it also makes me sad to even think about it, that it was more important to me to be liked and loved by people than it was for me to just be true to myself. And that's just the truth. And so I kind of talked about where it came from and what it looked like in the early days. But like I said, once I started getting into content creation, and it literally became my full-time job, and I always talk about how when you have your own business, your personal life is going to spill over into your business. Your business is only as healthy as your personal life is. So any issues you have in your personal life, they probably will show up in your business. So sure enough, hell yeah, of course, this is showing up in my business as a content creator, that I have issues with needing validation. So how it was showing up, I was having anxiety around brand deals and content releases, and I would feel like the content would be good, or I wouldn't even be that worried. This would be even before filming or before posting, but it was always just that anxiety or waiting on the other shoe to drop. It was like, okay, they agreed to give me the rate I wanted. All right, great, that's done. Okay, I gotta film this video. I'm feeling the pressure. Like, this has to be amazing. This has to be perfect. Okay, no edits, great. Okay, I'm about to post this on social media. Like, I hope that people like this video. I hope that people engage. I hope that the brand sees that, like, this is something that people are interested in, that this really was aligned. Or even if it was just a video that I posted, I'm like, oh my God, I hope people like this. I hope this is what people want to see. And it really kept me from pushing the boundaries sometimes and trying new things and getting creative, because I wanted to play it safe of the things that I knew that people would like. And overthinking every single post and video was so exhausting. And also, it slowed me down from being able to pump out more content. One thing that you have to know about this game of content creation is that it's all about the quantity. And I take that back. It's not just all about the quantity. It's the quality is really important as well. But you can only be responsible for the quantity, and you let God, source, whatever you believe in, handle the quality. Meaning, every time that you create something, you are giving it your all. You're giving it your best, and you just get comfortable with doing more and more and more and more. And so your quality will improve with your quantity. And that's why you just need to focus on the quantity. But when I was overthinking everything and I needed to be validated, and if a post didn't do well, then I'm like, oh God, let's scratch the series, or let's not do this ever again. I wasn't really giving my content, I wasn't really giving my ideas space to breathe and to grow, because maybe it doesn't pop today, but it might pop a year from now. It might pop 10 years from now. It might pop 2 weeks from now. I don't know. And that's the good thing also about these platforms. So many of them are evergreen now. YouTube's evergreen, TikTok's evergreen, Instagram's trying to be evergreen. There's pieces of content that I have now on TikTok that did not pop at all when I posted it, and now here it is 2 years later, and it's got like 50,000 views or 100,000 views. But if I had deleted it right away, or if I never put out something again like that just because it didn't pop in that exact moment, I'd be limiting myself. Oh man, this is something else that was happening, is I was having so much burnout from performing, because everything was a performance. I wish I could find where I wrote about this in one of my journals, but I talked about how it felt like I was on a stage and I was just constantly always performing in content and in life. And it was a never-ending performance. It was a never-ending performance. I never got off the stage. I was just steadily performing always for the crowd. And the crowd, for the most part, was it wasn't even about the size of the crowd. It was just that I was always performing. And when you are always performing, and then the critiques come out or the reviews come back, or you see how many people were in the audience when the lights finally go on or off, whatever, so you could see the crowd, and it's like, damn, I was up here tapping for 5 hours and only 3 people were in the audience. Or damn, I was tapping for 5 hours and I only got one comment. Only one person said they liked it. What about the rest of y'all? What about the other 4 people? And it just becomes so exhausting when you are always performing just to get the feedback from other people, just to get that validation from other people. It's exhausting. And I realized that I couldn't keep performing. I just couldn't. Like you can't do it your entire life. I don't know. Like you just eventually get tired of it. I had to shift from performing all the time to just creating. And there's a difference. There's a difference from when you just go out on stage and you're just having fun. You're just on stage having a good time. You are creating because this is you. You are expressing yourself. I always talk about this. In order to express yourself, you have to have a self to express. And so when you don't have a self to express and you hide behind this mask and you're always performing, then it's so exhausting because you're not really creating. You're just doing whatever other people want you to do. And that is tiring. But when you are living in your purpose, when you are living as yourself, when you are expressing who you really are, you never get tired of it because it's just you being you. And guess what? This was the real kicker. I might talk about this more later, but this was the real kicker. When you when you get comfortable and validate yourself, other people actually will validate you. And I know people probably heard this when it comes to relationships. They talk about how, well, if you don't want to be with yourself, why the hell would anybody else? And that's so true. And it's the same way with literally every single thing. And that's why we always say that it starts on the inside. You have to feel that way about yourself first. If you don't validate yourself, why the hell would anybody else? If you don't like who you are, why would anybody else? It starts with you. And that's really what a lot of people have. Even if you think some people are crazy or like you don't like them yourself, but they clearly like themselves and other people clearly like them, it's because at least they like who they are. And I don't know about you, but once you start liking who you are and you go around people who don't like who they are, you're like, ugh, it's yuck. It's disgusting. I kind of got on a tangent on that one, but yeah, I'll just leave that there for now. It also felt like I was always chasing and I was never really arriving anywhere. It was like a never ending hamster wheel, or like I said, a never ending performance. And I knew that that had to shift. And also my content had stopped growing. I had stopped growing. I wasn't growing like I was. And I was feeling really unfulfilled and bored with my content. On top of I wasn't getting the feedback that I wanted to. And it felt like at a certain point, the content wasn't even mine anymore. I was creating for other people. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Didn't you leave your engineering job so that you didn't have to do what other people told you to do? Didn't you leave your engineering job so you could be yourself, so that you could be you? Like, that's why you left. If you were just going to be a slave to somebody else, if you were just going to be at the whim of what other people wanted from you, then why'd you even leave, babe? You could have stayed. And that's when I knew that I had to really expand and I had to really work through my issue with needing to be validated by other people. And so what did that inner work really look like? For me, it looked like, first of all, asking, who am I without the feedback loop? Like, what does my life, what does my content look like if no one was watching, if nobody was ever going to watch, if nobody ever knew who I was, if nobody ever had to see what I did on earth? What would I do? Who would I be? What would I create? And I realized then that I was like, oh, it's definitely not this. The first time I kind of started asking myself this question was when I was just kind of getting over my people pleasing. And I was still in my engineering job and I was like, well, I damn sure wouldn't be here. And that was when I started to just think about what would life look like if it was lived for Diamond? What would that look like? Who would she be? What would she do? And I started to do those things, do more of them. And I started reading some books. You could check out my Amazon book list for some of them. Really quick though, I would definitely say Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, Motivation Manifesto. I can't think of who that's by at this time, but it'll be in the list. And Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And also this book called Wabi Sabi, a little random, but I loved that book. But all of those books really helped me to start thinking about another way of life and what that could look like and who that version of me would be. And I also started listening to more Abraham Hicks. Love Abraham Hicks. And I also this is around the time when I had found Universe Guru. Her name is Mina Irfan on here on YouTube. You could check her out. And just doing more journaling. I started writing more because in the artist way, you have to write. That's a part of the process with the artist way is you have to write every day. And when I started writing every day, I realized one, this is when I realized that I could write. I didn't really know that I could write. I took a writing class in high school and my teacher said that I was good, but I really, really struggled with writing. Like I cried the first day of class in high school for my writing class because I just thought I was so bad. But he pulled something out of me. And for a while I stopped writing because I was like, I'm not that good. But when I came back to writing, when I was reading The Artist's Way, I realized I was like, oh, when I would read it back, I said, oh, girl, you can write. Who knew? Who knew? And a lot of truths came out of me, a lot of realizations came out of me, and I started to realize and discover who I was as a person without other people's opinion and other people's validation. And I started creating for my own joy again. I started doing things for my own joy again. And for a minute, I experienced some lows. And I'm not surprised looking back that I experienced them because I still had so many fears. I'm like, okay, I'm not getting the validation that I once was. I'm not living in accordance with what other people told me I had to. My life is doomed. Like, I don't know if it's going to go well. I don't know if I'm right. I can't do it any other way. I was sick and tired of doing it any other way, but there were still a lot of fears. So I experienced like a year and a half of just like spiraling down when it came to my audience, when it came to my social media growth, when it came to my finances. And I was just like, damn. But I never gave up because knowing what I learned from all those books I read, Abraham Hicks, sometimes when you already have a lot of momentum going in one way, it can take a lot for things to shift the other way. So I had a lot of beliefs that if I didn't do this way, that my life would be terrible. If I didn't do this a certain way, my life would be terrible. If I didn't create content a certain way, nobody would watch it. If I didn't do this a certain way, nobody would want to follow. So there was a lot of beliefs that had to play out in order for me to shift my momentum and shift my belief system completely and have conviction in truly being my own validation. And so I say that for my people who are watching that may be struggling with validation issues, there may be a period of time. And like I said, mine was about a year and a half. And there was other things that played too. But I'll be honest, it was about a year and a half where things got bad. Things got worse. And I had to trust myself and I had to trust my own validation and know that things were going to get better. And of course, eventually they did. My life is so much more aligned now and so much more peaceful now. And I'm so happy. Like I'm so happy. I don't even care about my social media growth like I used to, needing the certain amount of followers, needing a certain amount of views, needing all those things on my content because I just feel so good every time I create a piece of content because I know that it is truly authentically me, that it is something from my heart and it's something that really resonates with who I am. And I love that it took time for me to get the confidence, but I now have the confidence to just put up my camera and just yap. Like the me from 2 years ago, 3 years ago would scream. She'd be like, we need a script and we need this and we need a whole new room. We need a whole new house. We need a whole new life. Like she would literally freak out about just throwing up the camera like I did with no real script, just a couple of bullet points of what I wanted to talk about. But you have to trust that the right people will find you and that you don't need millions of views. You don't need millions of people to agree with you to be valuable. Because oftentimes that's not what's going to happen at first. Because if you already have fears that people may not agree with you or people may not view your content, that's got to play out now. And it's going to be like, basically what it is a so what? Okay, you're so terrified that you're going to keep posting content, no one's going to see it. Now what? So what? Okay, you posted a video, you got 5 views. So what? Okay, you posted a video and it got a negative comment. Okay, so what? You posted a video and somebody disagreed with you. Okay, so what? What now? Nothing. Literally nothing. You just keep going. And so sometimes I will play those things out in my head now so that I don't have to play them out in real life of, okay, now, so what? Of any fear that I may have. Well, I don't know if we got the da 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 da. Okay, and so what? So that's another really good thing you can do as you're working through this is ask yourself, so what? To any of the fears, doubts, or worries that you have about it. Looking stupid. Okay, you look stupid. So what? People thought you looked dumb in your video. So what? Do you know how much content everybody consumes every single day? They won't remember it. Probably by the end of today. When I really let needing validation from other people go, I saw that I felt lighter. My content felt lighter. My content was happier. And everybody that knew me deeply said that my content felt more like me. It felt more of like who I really was all the time. And to me, that felt really good because I knew there was a point in time where my content, it wasn't fully me. And I tell this story all the time, but I went to VidCon and I was hanging out with some really big creators. I'm talking millions and millions of followers. And what I noticed about all of them with who they were online and who they were in person, it was the same exact person for most of them. I was so nervous about them following me, not because I didn't have as many followers as them. I didn't care about that. It was that when they would go there, I could tell, and maybe it was just me in my head a little bit, but they'd be like, oh, okay. And they would see some of the content and it wasn't who I was in person. And I knew that. Who I was in person didn't align with who I was online. It was like I was being a little corporate-y in HR and not online because I wanted to be perfect. And I wanted to make sure that it was something that other people could get behind. But really, I needed to lean into just being myself. And ever since going to VidCon, that is something that I have strived for is just being as authentically me on camera. Like when you see me on camera, I want you to meet me in person and be like, yeah, that's the same girl. Same. That's yes. Because people love me in person. I love me in person, but I didn't really like who I was online. It was like, why am I okay in person talking about astrology and tarot and spirituality, but online I'm afraid, or I don't think it's a safe space to talk about that when that's literally the only thing that I can consume online. It didn't make sense, but it was just my fear and me needing immediate validation. And I just think about my series that I have right now with the Detroit Tourism Board. It's an astrology series, and I get to go to all these cool places in the city, which I love. I love showing off Detroit. I love showing off where I'm from, and I get to talk about astrology, which I absolutely love. And it's just so aligned. And I know that I needed to be comfortable and confident to show up as myself, whether no matter who approved or who didn't, to really be able to attract and call in those type of collaborations. And so I say all that to say, if you've been tying your worth to your audience, you're not alone. I used to do it. Or if you tie your worth to what other people think, because I'm speaking a little bit about content, but I'm also speaking about real life, because whatever we're going through with our content, we're probably going through it in real life as well. It's all connected. So if you've been tying your worth to your social media presence, your numbers, you're not alone. Validation, it's a sugar high, but it doesn't really nourish you from within. It's not nourishing. It's just a sugar rush. So how can you just create more from a space of who you really are and not care about the numbers, not care about the validation? I challenge you to post content for a week, 2 weeks, and not check the analytics and not care at all about the analytics. I really barely check my analytics. I'm just starting to really check my analytics now. I wasn't checking it because I knew that it stressed me out. And here's one thing that I will recommend. If you are going to check your analytics, first do a fast. No checking analytics fast. Is that what you would call it? Whatever, analytics fast. And then when you're ready to get back into it, start noticing the small wins. I keep a win journal, and every day I'm writing down a win. Whether it's like, 2 new followers, 1 new follower, 3 new comments, 2 saves on this video. Okay, views are up 10% over the month. And then I check the next day, it's like views are up 11% over the month. And I will write that down, because the more you pay attention to the wins, the more there will be, okay? Because where our focus goes, our energy goes. And that is what will compound. So focus on what is going right. Focus on the validation that you are getting. This is first, of course, after analyzing and reflecting on how you need validation in the first place. This is kind of like after you've started to move through that, but notice the wins that you already are getting. And I guess I would say first, if you love your content, are you loving the content that you're making? Do you feel like your content is authentic to you? Or are you holding back because of what you think other people might think? And if you are, then you need to address that before you start really looking at the analytics and stuff and diving into the wins. I mean, you could do the wins anyway. I do the wins for everything in my life, but just I just want you to kind of desensitize yourself a little bit to the analytics for a second. And so yeah, that's really it for this video. I'm going to challenge you guys to ask yourself, what would you create? What would you do? Who would you be if no one was watching? And leave that down in the comments because I'm curious. And if this video resonated, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.